That makes sense? And that's what we often don't recognise. We often just live life, and trainers live their life in a linear motion. We don't check to see what other ranges of motion are occurring throughout that hip joint. And it's our job to identify all the possibilities. Did that answer your question?
I just think, I just feel for the end. It's a bigger question. I think it's subjective. I am just thinking, all right, so if everything is interconnected, and we are working on the range of motion of your hip, and this coming from your lumbar spine, only if we were, physiotherapists will say that everything is so interconnected. So how do we know that by working on the range of motion of the hip, we are solving the problem if the problem is coming from somewhere else? But it's just, I don't think there's an answer for that.
Well, for me, what I would look at is if there is a problem with the hip, then I would be looking at the joints above and below as well. In fact, that would be and that makes sense, really, because the joints above and below are going to directly affect what's in between. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes.
The reason for that, you know, and this might interest you, it might not. I'm going to send you guys off for a quick break very shortly. It's going to break scenery. But what often happens is, especially in the lumbar spine, if your lumbar spine doesn't move, your hips try to become your lumbar spine. Your hips will try to pick up the slack that the lumbar spine doesn't have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when I see hip problems, I want to look at what their spine does and what their joints below do.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I'm not going to say it's often the case, because otherwise that leads us down rabbit holes. What I wanted to move away from is heuristic outcomes like you have weak glutes because you have a hip problem. Well, if I've got a guy or a girl that can shift twice their body weight in a squat, I'm guaranteeing it's not a glute problem. Yeah, does that make sense?
100%.
Because we always go for tight IT band, we always go for tight or weak glutes. That seems to be the kind of the go-to. Yeah, that's it. It's heuristic, and often it's not true, especially if you're dealing with somebody who has excellent neural output. If you have excellent neural output, why would it be weak glutes? Yeah. So these measures sort of start to debunk a lot of these things, and they're actually giving you far better tools than the heuristic measures that are out there. Yeah. You and I learned from the same sort of, plumb lines, for example.
Yeah.
It's another heuristic. Well, if that's out, then you can't. That must mean you can't perform.
Yeah.
But often you find that we're not actually symmetrical beings. When you look in the mirror, your eyes aren't at the same height, your eyebrows are different. We like to think that we're symmetrical, but we are just not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you only add something that you've done from an early age. If you play tennis, any tennis players here? No? Okay, studies that probably over the last maybe 5-10 years have suggested that if you're playing a sport like tennis, the girth of your humerus can be, and this study has been done for over a long period of time, the girth of the humerus is thicker on the arm that you hit the ball than the opposite side. Because essentially your body is now compensated for what it thinks it needs. So those types of things happen from childhood. And that's why it's so important from childhood that you are active, or that if you have kids that they are active, because that sets them up. Yeah, the body responds to activity from a very early age. So we're not symmetrical, so to measure or create symmetry is not something that is either necessary or appropriate. Does that make sense, everybody? I'm going to start waffling if I keep going on too long. It's 1:45. Take 15 minutes, all right? And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we will start moving through